Humans have a really hard time releasing certain things. And when you have anything chronic, you start to know yourself through that chronic filter. Humans, in my opinion, they start
Yeah.
to adapt their lives. They start to identify. And there was a woman that wrote a book. She called it woundology. And I was like, huh,
Hmm.
kind of revisiting that wound over and over again as a
Yeah.
means of associating yourself with it after a while, and dogs don't do that.
Rita Hogan, thanks for joining me on the podcast.
I'm super excited to be here.
Yeah, me too. I thought it'd be a nice change of pace because I cover a lot of psychology, human healing stuff, and so I thought it'd be great to focus on canine healing and especially like a kind of a Western herbalist approach to that. Very much in line with, what we practice here in our home, on ourselves, and with our dog. So I love your book. I mean, it's like the encyclopedia for herbal dog care.
Thank you. I've worked really hard on it, and it's just a natural kind of flow from the practice that I've had over the last couple decades and what I've learned. And it's a book basically based on my practice and what my mentors have taught me and what everything goes through your own filter and
Hmm.
comes out the other side. And so yeah, I'm pretty excited about it. Uh, it makes me happy. So
Yeah, cool. I,
uh,
I gotta ask first, your book is dedicated to your pug Francis, and
yes.
just want to check in. How's Francis doing?
Frances passed away. Um,
Oh.
Frances passed away a while back. She, I talk about her in the book. I believe she died of a broken heart. Um, when she lost her bonded pair, Finbar, her tail never came back up, and I was in a very stressful situation in my life then. And you know, our dogs teach us so much, and uh, I wasn't paying attention, I
Hmm.
wasn't paying attention like I should have been. But she was my best friend. Like, she was the best. And she was such a great pug and such a great dog. And, everything that a dog is, she was definitely that.
Hmm.
But yeah, now I have 5 other dogs. But, like, some dogs just really hit us hard. And she was definitely one of those dogs.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I've been through it. What is it about pugs that you love?
You know, I just love their little personalities. I love making them feel good. Um, because a lot of the things that people believe about pugs, like good nutrition and herbs and energy medicine can shift those things considerably. And I love the way they interact with you, and a lot of them are compact. Like, a lot of my pugs have been small, and they just bring such joy. They're always happy and fun, and I've always had hardy little pugs. So I rescued so many of them, hundreds of them, with a girl in Nashville or a woman in Nashville. And just, they were all so fun. 99.9% of them were. We had a couple that were challenges, but
Hmm.
definitely from abuse. But yeah, I just love and I love this sounds just weird, but they have a little pug smell to them. They have a little pug smell. I don't know what it is, but it's like puggy perfume. And they all have this little smell to them. And I love that as well. Because, I don't know, when you spend your life with dogs and everything, I see your little dog on your lap,
Yeah.
cutie. Pugs have a little smell to them. I have 2 black pugs right now, and Figgy Nubbins and Ronan, and they both have the same little smell, and my other dogs do not. So I don't know. It's just cute. Love them.
Is it different than the kind of I call it like the Fritos when their paws have that kind of yeasty
Yeah, yeah, no,
smell?
it's different than that smell. Yeah, yeah, and it may be a combination. You don't know. Like, maybe it's a combination. I don't know, but their ears and their little heads have a little smell to them that you know of all the pugs that I've had, they all smell the same.
Well, next time I see a pug, I'm gonna have to get up close and
You're gonna have to sniff that.
huff on a pug.
Yeah. So your dog's absolutely adorable.
Yeah, this is little Suki.
Hi, Suki.
She's a little mutt. We think Chihuahua, some blue heeler, and rat terrier.
Well, she's a good orb. I had a rat terrier, and I love Chihuahuas. Um, uh, she's cute.
Yeah, I know. She's a beauty.
She's a
Yeah,
beauty.
she was a rescue, so she came with some socialization issues. She's got some fear aggression that I've been really trying to work with and learning a lot about over the past couple of years that we've had her in our home.
Well,
Um,
there's a great plant here near us.
mhm.
Uh, there's a great plant. It's invasive. It's the Scotch broom.
Really? Broom. Yeah, we get tons of it around here.
Okay, so it's gonna bloom soon, right? So take some, ask permission, but take some flowers. Don't touch them. Put them in water and preserve that water. Make a flower essence out of the Scotch broom. It's awesome for moving anger through the liver, and especially anger as a trigger,
Hmm.
right? That sounds like what she's got. Anger as a trigger. And I would mix that with I'd probably start giving her some nettles.
Hmm.
Even the flower essence won't be around for a while, but even like just a tea of the nettle leaf along with that Scotch broom flower essence could be very life-changing for any dog that has uh, reactive fear aggression.
I was going to ask you about it, so that's fantastic, and I love that it's all the things that grow around here too. And
Yeah.
it's interesting, like there is this thing about correspondences, right? Like nettles, they've got their stingers, very kind of spiky plants, and so you're saying that that could help calm some fear aggression.
Yeah, and nettles work on the kidneys, and fear comes from the kidney and anger comes from the liver. So, when they come to, and the kidneys and liver and lymphatics and all that stuff are so interconnected, everything's connected. And um, when you support the kidneys, um, fear goes away
Hmm.
in the most part, depending on where that fear is originating from. But my first bet is always on the kidneys. And then when you have anger as a trigger, reactive aggression, the liver's at play. But I have found that Scotch broom, the flower essence of the flower is just so powerful for anger as a trigger.
Hmm. Amazing. Yeah, we don't know a whole lot about her history. We got her from a rescue on the mainland here. And, somebody picked her up off the street. And then she spent like her first year with an elderly lady who never took her out and socialized her. And so we got her after that. So, with her, a little small dog, imagining her early life on the street, sometimes a good offense is the best defense, and so instead of running away and cowering, she'll go toward whatever she sees as some kind of threat. It's just unfortunate because, like I say, she's 99% amazing. She's the funniest, smartest little dog we've ever had, and she's got this issue that limits her
Yeah.
life and limits our life.
It sounds like she's got like a good imprint of something. One thing that's good for that is comfrey flower essence.
To
Comfrey.
help kind of clear that imprint.
Yeah, you can I would use the three I would use three. I'd use nettle, I'd use nettles in the leaf form, but I'd also I probably would mix marshmallow, Scotch broom, and comfrey together as flower essences, and you can get those in Canada. Just Google it, it'll come up, and someone's selling good flower essences there for sure. Um, and I would mix those three together and give her 3 drops in the morning and 3 drops at night. Just remember though, like as the body pushes the energy through, right? Because she's having a physical manifestation of an emotion, right? An imprint.
Mhm.
Uh, energy that is most likely trapped in her fascia. And so like massage, or I see that you have some healing bowls. Wait, there it is.
Hmm.
Healing bowls. There, some um sound healing can help too, but like with energy medicine combined with flower essences can really push that through. But don't be surprised if she has a day where she feels extra aggressive, or has some moments where that energy's moving through. There's one book that I would highly recommend. Um, it's called Four Paws, Five Directions.
Hmm.
So she's on the back of my book. I
Nice.
read I read this 20 years ago and it changed my life. So but in here Cheryl has some wonderful diagrams of the meridians, right? So what I would, and you can also rub those flower essences into the kidney and liver um meridians.
Hmm.
Rub them right on the meridian. Just take, just drop a couple drops of liquid there and rub them on there. Um you can just make a flower essence, put it in the sun. If there's no sun, just leave it out for about 6 hours in the water. And then cut it 50-50 with brandy. So 50% brandy, 50% flower water. Just don't touch it. Don't put your energy into it. So don't touch it. Just pour it in there like a little glass container. And then do 50% water, 50% brandy. Uh, and you could also use glycerin. I don't like it as much at all, but uh, I like distilled things for flower essences, but um, uh, just like 3 drops. So twice a day, and you can rub them into those meridians. And you can Google those meridians as well.
Hmm.
I'm a book person, so you can
Hmm.
Google those meridians. But rubbing them into those meridians, it's awesome. I guarantee she'll be a completely different dog in a year. Like just
Wow.
completely, probably way before that. But sometimes those emotions are, and coupled with massage,
Hmm.
right? Because a lot of those emotions get trapped in the fascia, and when you massage and help the lymphatics start moving, um, all of that, uh, all of that emotion gets stored, in the fascia. And also, I personally believe, it's just a personal belief, is that some of those emotions get stuck in the matrix, the interstitial fluid, in the body. And once you help the lymphatic and help move the energy, right, the flower essences will do the work.
Hmm. Nice.
So, yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, she definitely, I always massage my dogs. I love giving them that. But with her, she's been the kind of she's had the most challenges for us of any of the dogs that we've had. And I've often thought, like if the healing that I experienced through working with plant medicines, if that could somehow be adapted to dogs, like I often thought, like if Suki could just have like an ayahuasca session with a bunch of other friendly dogs, it might help change her response to dogs, that's so ingrained and kind of
Yeah.
imprinted on her.
So, yeah, she doesn't need ayahuasca. She definitely can use flower essences. Another thing that is nice, I don't know if it's available up in Canada, but um there's a company called Feral Fungi, and they make mushroom essences, which are nice. But dogs are really conducive to plant medicine, and they don't get in their way like humans do. But if you know anything about, which I believe you do, energy medicine, things imprint, and they can again get in our tissues and get in our like ethereal surfaces and just stay there until you're triggered. Like I've dealt with a lot of dogs that are triggered. I've had one myself. I know how it can negatively affect your life, like it can be a big problem when dogs are triggered and you can't bring them places, and they're fine unless they see another dog. And um that can be an issue. So working through that is not only beneficial for yourself, but it's also beneficial for the sympathetic nervous system of your pup. look at, she is completely relaxed right now, um,
Mm,
doing very well. But I'm sure that if someone walked in the room with a dog that she didn't like, she would trigger like that. So, um, and the beauty of that is you can tell when it's working because she
mhm,
won't be triggered like she was. For instance, my dog Gertie, she's she's 85 pounds.
mm,
Okay. Her head is massive. It's huge. I love it. But she is dog aggressive, and she used to be pretty much every animal aggressive.
mm,
Our chickens got into our front yard, and the two of them, and uh we, like, totally went into fight or flight, realized we saw him outside. I'm like, oh my God, Gertie's out there, right? And she's just sitting there with the chickens, right? Because you don't really want to try that out. Like,
yeah.
like, well, it'll happen if it'll happen, but you work on it and work on it. And I was like, we were all just like, "What? Like, this is crazy." She has made a recovery. Like, she is sitting out in the yard with our chickens on a daily basis, which would never, ever happen. Like, that's
Right.
not something, like, oh God, so her prey drive and her need to shake and kill, that's what she used to do. Um, it's not there. It's
Mm,
not. So, a lot of those flower essences and stuff that we've given Gertie, obviously are doing wonders for her. I'm
wow.
not going to try her out with a small dog. It's not happening. But
Yeah.
bet you any money that she would be so much better than she used to be. I mean, it's different with a tiny dog, right? But she's huge and she could kill a tiny dog like that.
Hmm.
Like, chicken, they can fly and do stuff, but she didn't even go near them. She just sniffed them and went, oh, I guess it's a
Yeah.
chicken, and just, I mean, we were all just like, we had tears in our eye. I mean, it was just because,
It's a
when you're
moment. Hmm.
with dogs that are reactive and dangerous, because she is so big, right? She's dangerous. Um, you have to be careful, and it does affect your life.
Yeah. 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 It can be really limiting. Yeah. She's got just around the corner from us, our neighbors who are super kind of chill, wonderful people. Any of the dogs they've had, and they're all kind of like Boston pug mixes. They're little short-nosed dogs. But she's from the get-go always been fine with those dogs. They're her little buddies. Even the female, because with other small male dogs, she can be okay. And so seeing them play together, just I know what you mean. It's like, oh my God, it makes me
Yeah,
so happy
yeah,
just that she can have little friends.
yeah, yeah. Gertie's got some sisters here, but every now and then she hauls off and cracks them. But it hasn't happened in a really long time.
Mm,
You know, um, so, like, it is limiting, and you want them to clear that. I
hmm.
mean, and it does negatively affect us as well, and it negatively affects them. So, give that a try. Give it a try.
Yeah. Oh, thanks so much. It gives me some hope, that things can shift for her.
Oh yeah.
Because it's not just about the way it limits our life, but I know how much her life is limited and how much she would get out of having more canine friends, you know?
Yeah, and not going into that kind of reverberating sympathetic excess moment, that fight or flight, where she goes into total fight,
Yeah.
right? And she feels threatened, and it's a big mess. Like that kind of stuff, it does negatively affect her when it happens.
Oh yeah.
And then again, it reverberates and it stays in there. It
Hmm.
stays in for a while, and it's just about feeling unsafe, right?
Hmm.
It's about feeling unsafe. And then, you know, they condition our behavior. Whereas, you like, if you're ever on a walk and you see like a female dog coming towards you, or she might be reactive on a leash, um, uh, we get, our language changes, right?
Yeah.
And we get like apprehensive. And so then all of a sudden we're not smelling safe. She's like, oh, my dad's unsafe. I gotta
Hmm.
go. I gotta protect him. And um, it's kind of a mess.
Yeah, because then we end up like kind of reinforcing that association she has already.
Yes.
It's like, oh, it's right to be scared because Papa's like, I can feel
Yep.
his nerves because I'm thinking, oh, she's going to attack that dog. It's going to be a nightmare, right? So I'm already like bracing myself. Or so I've been really trying to pay attention to that. Is like, what's my state? Like, if we see a dog coming, um, try to avoid that kind of the nervousness or tension that I know that she can pick up on and do something to divert or just give a lot of space or whatever it takes. But yeah, I think like the herbal remedies, I've often thought, God, I just need like to visit a dog shaman. Um, you know, and I think you're a dog shaman. You probably don't call yourself that, but that's what I'm hearing. It's the same as the
My friend is.
vegetalistas who work down in Peru, and they
Yeah.
help humans deal with these imprints and help to clear them and free up the energy using plant
Yep.
remedies of all kinds.
Yeah. Well, and the biggest thing, I do have a dog shaman friend. Um, the biggest thing is that, again, dogs don't get in their way, right? Humans have a really hard time releasing certain things. And they, when you have anything chronic, you start to know yourself through that chronic filter. Humans, in my opinion, they start
Yeah.
to adapt their lives, they start to identify. And there was a woman that wrote a book. I have it downstairs, but she called it woundology. And I was like, huh,
Hmm.
kind of revisiting that wound over and over again as a
Yeah.
means of kind of associating yourself with it after a while, and dogs don't do that.
Yeah.
Dogs don't do that. They don't rationalize their behavior. Um, they have emotions, yes, but they tend to do what works, and what they can get something out of. And um, so they're much easier, so much easier than it's one of the reasons why I'm a dog herbalist. I work with humans too, but I have to say dogs are easy. Um, it's so much easier for them to clear anything than a human.
Right, because we don't have to kind of unpack the story or let go of the story. It's just it's more happening on the purely physical and energetic level, right?
Yep. Well,
So
there's
you
no
can just
story for them.
yeah.
There's like, this is what happened, and this is what I made it mean, and this is what I'm doing. Where humans are, this is what happened, this is what I made it mean, this is what I'm doing, and this is how attached I am to it. You
Hmm.
know, because a lot of times, and sometimes people don't want to hear this, but I've looked it straight in the face and had to deal with it, right? Illness gives us things.
Hmm.
You know, like I had cancer a long time ago, and uh, a person that was helping me release a lot of energy around it, asked me like, Rita, what did you get from it?
Hmm.
And I was like, what? What? Stop it. What? No. I mean, I got a lot from it, given the situation in which I acquired it. Um, and I got to rest and I was exhausted and I was stressed and I had gotten myself in a situation where I wasn't taking care of myself. I wasn't honoring anything that I wanted out of life. And um it was a big deal. And they encouraged me, to not talk about it, to not give it energy, to realize that it was a part of me and that my body was trying to save me. And I totally got that. And, you know, we have to let go of these attachments that we have to the identification of it. Um, you know, because because our energy is finite. The energy that we are, I mean, I think energy never ever dies, but the amount of energy that we have, the voltage we have in our cells is finite if we don't replenish, right? We
Hmm.
have to replenish. And um the more energy we give to something, uh we want that to be have reciprocity and to have like we want to plant it in good soil,
Hmm.
right? We don't want to give it to people that are negative and nasty and spend our time doing those types of things. And we want to honor ourselves and take care of ourselves, because when we take care of ourselves, we take care of our animals, because we're not
Yeah.
unsafe. We're taking care of ourselves and feeling safe. And um, so it's a big complex thing, but um, I think dogs just do it with such grace. We can learn so much from them. In my book, I picked a what do you call it? A quote that I love from Tismal Crow, who is a
Yeah,
indigenous.
yeah.
He says, "We believe that the domestic animals were sent here to accept the diseases of humans and to show them how to heal these diseases." One of the things that the things that I definitely learned from Frances, uh, is to is grace, right? Um, she did everything with grace, and she was so forgiving, and she didn't hold people to their darkest moment. She was a puppy mill breeder, and she had some dark moments, right? And for her to trust people again, and for her to believe that her life could be good, and she lived a great life once I got her, um, we had to clear a lot of energy. But I mean, that's the thing that I think our animals can definitely help us, is not to have, to let go of those attachments, and to trust again, and to not use what we happened in the past as a means to not be present in the present and future. You know,
Yeah.
let go of those things.
Hey, if you haven't already, take a moment, like this video and subscribe to the channel. It actually really helps. And look, if you really want to support the podcast, consider becoming a Patreon member. Starting at just $5 a month, you get early release of all episodes weeks before they're out to the public, with no ads, no interruptions. We do a monthly call where we get together and we talk about topics like the one we're talking about on this podcast, me and you and other cool people. And you get other stuff. There's a private RSS feed that you can subscribe to and listen to extra bonus content on your favorite podcast player. It's really great and it's growing. So go to patreon.com/howl in the wilderness and join up. Yeah, probably my favorite psychologist, James Hillman, he would talk about that as he'd say it's not so much the traumatic things that we experienced as children, but the traumatic way in which we remember them. That
Yes,
can,
yes, yes, yes. I love
it's good,
that.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I got to write down James Hillman before I forget, though. Hold on. James Hillman.
Yeah. And he also, I mean, a big kind of principle that he followed was to honor the symptom, because the symptom is your body, your soul trying to tell you something. Like with your cancer, it's like pay attention, take care of yourself, rest, slow down,
Oh,
all of
yeah.
those things, right?
360. That's what I had to do.
And then you listened,
360.
right? And
Oh my
then
God,
things
yeah.
changed.
Oh
Yeah.
my God, I listened, and I keep listening, and you get complacent, and you have to keep listening. Uh, uh, yeah, absolutely. I love that. You do have to honor the symptom, because I will tell you right now, like years before uh I got a diagnosis of ovarian cancer, my body was speaking volumes. I just wasn't listening.
Mm,
I didn't have time to listen, is my story that I had. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. My body made time,
right.
and it said, yeah, so here's the thing. You need to change your life. And, uh, you know, I was pushed to that point, right? And I knew, like, oh, I have to listen. I have to change my whole life. And I did. And
Mm.
I'm so much better for it.
Yeah, I wrote down that quote from Tismal Crow. There's a number of things, like not only like can the dogs help us learn how to heal some of these ailments, but I think there is that energetic connection that we have with dogs. Like when our dogs have gotten sick over the years, I've often felt that somehow we're transmitting some of our kind of energetic ailments to them. Like they're carrying them. And I saw that as such an act of I don't know, of service. It really touches me when I think that, and I do believe that it's true. And um, and it's made me more aware of like when I make contact with my dog, what kind of state I'm in, and that I'm not just using the dog as a way to release some
Oh my
anxiety or
God.
fear or whatever.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I mean, I talk about that in my book, about the nervous system, and there's a section in there called um, Our Dogs Ourselves, right?
Hmm.
Uh, so many um, people over the years that I've worked with, their dogs have a form of what they have. And, if you look at Francis, unfortunately, Francis was in a house where, my, this is just like, this is totally anecdotal, right? But I don't care. Like anecdotal is our experiences. They're what we're experiencing in real life, not in a sanitary environment, like just in real life. And, Francis lost Finbar in December. And don't quote me on the timeline, but in late December, Finbar died at like he was going to turn 18. And they had been together for at least 14 years or 15, 13 years. And very, very, laying together every day, every moment of the day was spent with Finbar. And he passed away. And uh Frances started, uh just put her tail down. And at the same time, my partner of 20 years was dying of breast cancer, and it went to the lungs.
Mm.
Her father had died, and she really never got over that. And grief can settle in our lungs.
Right.
And she got re-diagnosed with a reoccurrence in the lungs of breast cancer. So that was happening at the time. And then she got that re-diagnosis in March. I I bring my dogs in for an X-ray once a year. So I get a full body X-ray when they get older. And she was 14 at the time, and I brought her in for her X-ray. There was nothing in her lungs, like nothing you could see on an X-ray. And um I think that was February. By April, uh she could hardly breathe.
Mm.
And I thought it was pneumonia. And I thought grief had settled into her lungs over Finbar. But when I had to put her down and she couldn't breathe at all, it was just horrendous. And watching your pug suck air is just the worst thing ever. And
Mm.
we brought her in, they gave her an X-ray, and her whole entire lung cavity was covered in tumors.
Oh,
And this was like I think less than 2 months,
wow.
right? And the fact that Finbar had died and Maureen had lung tumors herself, right? And my question to Frances is, did Frances take on some of Maureen's illness to to alleviate, because her Maureen's breathing got a lot better
Mm.
uh, over those 3 months. And we she didn't get any chemo or radiation. She wasn't a candidate for that, and that wasn't really who she was. But like, um, there's a lot of questions asked there. I think Finbar dying had a lot to do with it for Frances. And I also think that, she laid on Maureen on a daily basis, and she would lay right on her chest,
Mm.
like half on the chest, half on like right here. So,
Hmm.
completely anecdotal. However, um, from a practitioner clinical standpoint, I've seen that play out again and again and again. And people sharing heart problems with their dogs, people sharing anxiety, lots of anxiety transference, uh
Mm.
people who have their dogs have lipomas, they have lipomas, liver damage, liver issues, kidney disease, so many things that the animals share with their people. And animals are some of our best teachers. And I had taken that situation that I went through, horrendous situation. And then I got diagnosed that same year. That
Wow.
was a great year, by the way. And Maureen lived she lived about a year and 3/4 after that. But like that same year I got diagnosed, you know, and it was, I had to learn to manage my stress and change my life very quickly and not take on the energy I was taking on prior. And Frances definitely taught me that.
Mm,
Um, she gave me that. I think it was a gift. Um, she definitely gave me that. And
mm.
uh, and I think our animals just can teach us those things. She taught me so much about energy transference, and I've seen it so much in dogs. And when you're in it yourself, you need those reminders, right? You need those reminders because sometimes you just, it, but when you're experiencing it, you definitely need people that can remind you of those things, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I mean, similar to like what you're saying about the dog not having a story so they can be easier to work with, in
Yeah.
that way, like dogs for me are such a clear mirror
Yeah.
as to what's going on around us, what's going on with us. I mean, they're showing an like unfiltered response to what they're picking up energetically. And so if you can pay attention to your dog, honor their reactions, honor what they're expressing to you, they're like one of the clearest mirrors that you could get. So I always joke, like our Boston Terrier Kingston, I call him my guru because he was teaching me so much. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And then it goes back to what you were saying with your puppy, like when they get reactive, right? Um, we do tense up and we do that we know that they react to a certain situation. When that situation comes up, we immediately get on the defensive and we immediately get, more tension in our body. And it becomes this little vicious circle. So we really have to
Mhm.
like calm our breath and calm our nervous systems down so that we can be, that energy can be an extension when we're with our puppies in that situation. And it can be hard to do that, right?
Yeah.
Be a little bit on the difficult side.
Yeah, because not only are you dealing with the possible interaction between the dogs, but you're also having to deal with another dog owner who may not be very aware or considerate of the kind of dog that you have. And we run into that a lot out here in the country. There's a lot of people with big dogs, and every owner thinks their dog is like friendly, and so if big dog runs up on Suki, yeah, they might be really friendly, but to Suki, that looks like, someone 3, 4 times her size running up on them, wide-eyed.
Yeah.
And so it's going to trigger her. And so it's also the humans who've got to be a little more aware and considerate of the dogs as individuals,
Yes.
and kind of dogs' personal space, you
And my
know?
dog is not your dog. You know,
Yeah, and like
we have
what you
off-leash
know as
dogs.
as friendly behavior on your dog's end from the other side that can be really threatening.
Yeah, absolutely. It can be very threatening. I have a one-eyed pug, right? She lost her eye in a fight, and
Oh,
um she does not do well with with those sudden things because she doesn't have any peripheral vision on this side, right? So and she's tiny, she's only 12 pounds. And
mhm,
so yeah, I mean, the off-leash dogs, which I love off-leash dogs. I mean, I do. I mean, I love dogs running free. But when you're in an area with a lot of other dogs and you're off-leash, you know there's a lot to be aware of. And one of those things is that your dog, who is friendly, off leash, fun, reliable, all those things, right? It's not other people's dogs. Other people's dogs are on leash. A lot of them are on leash for a reason, you
yeah.
know? And uh and like Figgy Nubbins, my little pug, she's an off-leash dog. She can totally be off leash, but I can't have her off leash because if a big dog does come running up to her, especially a female, um, she may pick a fight. That's how she lost her eye in the first place. Like she may pick a fight she can't cash.
Hmm.
So, can't have that. We don't want her losing her other eye, right? Some of
Hmm.
these little dogs don't know they're little. They have no idea. Some of these little dogs are big, feisty little dogs on the inside. And they're being dogs. That's another thing. we put all of our human expectations and behaviors on our dogs. And a lot of dog stuff is dog behavior.
Hmm.
It's stuff that would happen without us being there. That dogs have a pecking order. They do weird stuff. They also pick on the sick and wounded,
Mm.
right? I mean, I had a dog boarding kennel for so long and it was kennel free. And I'd have to be really careful um, about elderly dogs and also dogs that were sick. In fact, if the regular dogs at my kennel would constantly pick on another dog, I actually would have people go in and get their dog tested to see their blood work and stuff like that, just to see if they were okay.
Hmm.
Because dogs, it's not a nice behavior, and I don't want to see it happen, right? But when dogs get wounded or are ill, or dogs can smell cancer in other dogs as well. Sometimes they pick on them,
Mm.
which is not a good behavior to me, right? I don't,
Right.
but it is a normal dog behavior.
Hmm.
It's a normal dog behavior. I don't want to see it happen and I'm not going to let it proliferate, but uh, I'm also not going to chastise a dog for it. I'm just going to take that other dog out of the situation
Right. Yeah, yeah.
because that I saw that happen so much with the pack. Like um uh because when the dogs would be boarded, they would be a lot of them would be there for like a couple of weeks. So they would get into this flow of the
Hmm.
whole, because we're talking like 30 dogs running
Yeah,
around.
they're going to form like a pack dynamic, and there's going to be
Yes.
a hierarchy in there. And mhm.
And some of the dogs that were in charge of the group at that time, some of them were small.
Right. Yeah.
It's not about
Yeah.
the size. It's not about the size. I saw this little Chihuahua a little bit back this Great Dane up many a time just by her posturing.
Yeah.
Like, you know what? You need to settle down. And that Great Dane would sometimes do the bow, just lay down and not look, because they don't look. They're like, nope, not looking at you. Here's this little Chihuahua, right? Um, and I was always there to make sure the little dogs didn't get in trouble. But it was fascinating. I learned so much from hanging out with 30 dogs a day.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I really love like where this conversation has gone because it parallels so many of the conversations I have with psychologists and healers about kind of alternate views of trauma and how we heal trauma and things like that. And it's just like that's the approach you're taking to dogs, and I just really appreciate it. And I'm
Oh, thank
interested
you.
to hear a little bit about your background. Like, what was your initiation into herbalism and what led you to focus on healing dogs?
So uh my initiation into herbalism is I grew up with my dad, who was an avid farmer. He wouldn't call himself an herbalist, but he definitely knew what plants to use around our house. Um, I don't think he ever like went out and bought anything. He just knew the plants around our house, and we had a farm in Michigan, Upper Michigan, and I wish I paid more attention when I was young, knowing what I
Mm,
was like as an adult, but you don't do that. But my grandmother raised 16 kids in the Great Depression. No midwife, but no doctors. They never went to the doctor. They were too poor. Uh, all 16 kids lived a really long time. My mother's 94. Her brother just died at 101. Um, uh, it was pretty cool to see, how long everyone lived. And I studied Ayurveda uh, in my 20s for a while. Yeah, I studied Eastern religions at the University of Minnesota along with anthropology,
mm,
and it didn't resonate with me. So the Eastern religions did not resonate with me. Not all of it, a lot of it. Like I used like traditional Chinese medicine diagnostics. Cheryl Swartz, this book. Uh, helped me a lot. I mean, it really changed my thinking about the dog as an ecosystem and how everything is connected. And it put me on that path, which was great. But when I moved to Tennessee, and I bought a 32 or 36 acre farm, um, up there in the mountains, I got to be around the plants because I lived in the city prior in Minneapolis,
Mm,
and I got to be around the plants that I grew up with. And I think their frequency and resonance really started to work on me. And I was drawn back to them. I remembered my father. I remembered all the stuff that I did when I was a kid, and I really got back to that. And it was awesome. I started making salves and different herbal remedies and started selling them locally and stuff like that. And I just started studying and studying and studying. And then I had a pug rescue, and then I had the kennel-free dog place. And I just saw how sick dogs were.
mm,
I couldn't believe how sick my clients were. And I instilled this food rule, right? I would give them a list of like 20 to 30 foods, and I told them that they had to leave their dogs on the food the entire year if they were going to board with me at all because of the behavior changes in their physical, dogs that were eating like science diet and pedigree and things like that, they couldn't get along in a pack. They couldn't
mm.
do the chemistry thing. They were absolutely nutso. And I started looking at the effects of refined and chemically laden grains, and I could started looking at what was actually in these foods, and I thought it would be against the law, but it's not. There's rendered meal in a lot of foods, which is euthanized cats and dogs as well.
Oh
Like,
God. Mm,
and dogs eating cats and dogs. I was like, this has got to be illegal. And it wasn't illegal. And so many people don't know those things. Not every kibble company uses rendered meal at all. So there's some, and I found the kibble companies that didn't and that were making more limited ingredient kibble. And even 20 years ago, kibble was a lot better than it is today. Um, but now we have some more kibble companies going back to more limited ingredient diets. And then we have so much we didn't have back then. We have raw food and freeze dried food and home cooked meals and all of those things that are being touted and promoted. And so I'm loving that. But at the time, all I had was kibble. But even making a change in the kibble made a huge change in the behavior and the physical
mm.
manifestation of the dogs. They didn't smell like they did, they weren't as greasy. Their poop didn't stink hardly at all compared to like a dog on gravy train or again pedigree, science diet, royal canin. Some of these these foods that are so highly processed. I mean, it's just processed. And so uh people would hand me a bag of kibble and a bag of meds. And I thought, there's got to be a better way. And so I really started studying and studying and studying about canine physiology, chemistry, anatomy, all of that stuff. This book was a godsend. It was Veterinary Herbalism uh, by Susan Wynn and Barbara Fergois. I mean, just awesome, awesome having these two vets write this book. I think they wrote it in the 90s. It's still pretty prevalent today. Um, I had to fill in a lot of the gaps myself. And then, I started studying with people and I started uh, um, putting things together and just doing the work. Like, if you want to be an herbalist, it doesn't happen in an armchair. It doesn't happen in a place where you're a chair, right? It happens putting plants together. It happens communing with the plants, sitting with the plants, working with the plants, learning from the plants, and then also learning from the dogs. We had a pug dog rescue, and we used a lot of herbal remedies on the pugs, non-toxic. I worked with a vet named Kevin Brummett. I learned a lot from Kevin, and he learned a lot from me, I think. Definitely, he probably wanted to kill me most of the time, but I loved that man. He was a conventional vet. I think he's still a vet in Mount Juliet, Tennessee, and just a wonderful human. But you know, doing the work is how you learn. If
Right.
you're using non-toxic methods and you're seeing Like you're seeing calendula show up as a good lymphatic drainer again and again and again, because you learn that from traditionally in herbalism, information is handed down. And I definitely learned traditionally in many ways, whether it be from a book or from a person. But when you see calendula show up over and over again, healing the gut, healing the large intestine, moving lymphatics, doing the same action over and over and over again in similar dogs. It works best with dogs that are cool. Um, I don't need a study for that. You know,
Right.
in
Mhm.
in my clinic, it shows up over and over again. And that's what my book is all about. It's the stuff that I learned from my mentors and from herbalism in general, and then watched them play out over and over and over again over the past, 10 to 15 years, pretty hardcore, but in total, a little over 20 since I started making salves. And, you know, um, plants are beautiful. There's energetics in plants, there's spiritualism in plants, um, there's hardcore physical manifestations of plants. And if you open yourself up to them, highly rewarding.
Mhm. Yeah. Um, so you said that you ended up working with a like a traditional Chinese medicine model. I also think that there's some kind of there's like the Western mode in there, like the humors, right? Like I saw mentions in your book
Yes.
about
So I'm not a traditional Chinese medicine herbalist at all. I think so much is lost in translation
mhm,
of not knowing Mandarin. But I love traditional Chinese medicine diagnostics. I love how they view the body. I don't have a lot of resonance with the plants. Astragalus and different turmeric and different types of. I mean, there's some oyster shell. There's some overlap in herbs as well. But like I have some great like this Chinese medicine materia medica, right? I love having this, but most of the herbs in this materia medica, and materia medica is like a resume for herbs for those of you that don't know. Like most of these herbs, a ton of them, like fish poison yam rhizome, right? I don't use that. Like I don't know about them. And I would need like 3 lifetimes. So,
right.
my dad always taught me if you're going to do something, do it well and put your focus into it. And I focus on Western herbs. And that's why when I read this Four Paws, Five Directions book by Cheryl, here is this Western vet who's very good at Chinese medicine, but also uses Western herbs. Like she taught me about the body as an ecosystem, how to look at the body through traditional Chinese medicine, which I absolutely love. And I can completely understand those concepts. Um, but working with the Chinese herbs, I picked the Western herbs, which are found in the United States, Canada, and parts of Europe like Ireland and England and Scotland and things like that. I really love the plants that have that genetic resonance and energetic resonance because we live with them.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. And well, I think like what I've thought in the past and now I think is that like because there's been so much rupture to the lineage of Western herbalism, that we can go to Ayurveda or TCM for diagnostic models, which can be really helpful. But then
Yeah,
it's so important to work with the plants and the elements that live around you,
I do believe
because
that.
yeah, yeah. And I found that like the plants will speak to you. Like if you're paying attention on your walks, this happened to me so many times. Like a plant will like just kind of like announce itself to me, and I'll get curious about it. And then I find out that this plant could actually be helpful to me in some way. So then I
My God, yes,
develop, yeah,
yes.
like I've met a new friend out there. But it's amazing. Like it's just like something in me, like it'll grab my attention somehow. I'll get curious about it. And then I'll ask my wife, who is a herbalist, and I'm like, what's this plant? What's it all about? And then, it's amazing how that works, like, and how they speak to you through just somehow like getting your attention out there.
Yeah, I always tell people like if a plant keeps showing up in your life, right? It just keeps showing up, or even if it bothers you, like when you hear its name and you're like what? And then you hear it again, or it keeps nudging you, right? And nudging you. Pay attention. Pay attention. I had an experience, I've had an experience with so many plants, but um one for myself is Oriental plane tree. Like I have never met the plant in person. I have not met that plant that I know of, but I hope to one day. But like it kept coming up. It kept coming up in things I would read. It kept coming up in like my referrals for people. Like in my research for people, I would come across it again. And every time I came across it, it would just poke, right? It
Hmm.
was just poke. And so finally, after my body had cancer, I was looking up different remedies to help. I didn't do chemo or radiation, and different remedies to help me. And sure as enough, it was Oriental plane tree.
Hmm.
I took it for 3 years, hardcore, and it did what it was supposed to do. Like I had surgery, but they wanted to do chemo, and I said no. And I needed to find herbs that I needed to learn a lot about cancer herbs and different things like that. And Oriental plane tree is an excellent aromatase inhibitor because I had an estrogen based cancer. And these are like personal imprints, and that that herb just kept showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up and showing up. And I didn't realize it at the time. Like I was like, I don't know anything about that plant. And I blah, 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 blah. And I was like, oh my God, it had been sitting there talking to me for a long time, like going poke,
Hmm.
poke. And I've had a lot of those, uh, I've had a lot of those situations while I've been curious and looking at trying to help a client or a person, a dog or a person. But for myself, I just didn't recognize it until I looked for something specific, and there it was going, hi, I'm here. I'm trying to help you. It was
Hmm.
beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. Coming around full circle to this little one, Suki. It's amazing. Like we had to travel to adopt her and then bring her back to this place. But right out our back gate, we go walking and running every day in the same pathways along the ocean here. But just out our back gate on this hillside that goes down into the forest, that's where we harvest our nettles. So
Hmm.
every spring we get a huge nettle patch that shows up there. And then once we get down on the kind of main trail where there's a lot of bikers and people walking dogs, so it's a hot spot for her. That's where all the broom grows like crazy.
Oh,
And yeah. And so it's just kind of amazing to me that she ended up in a place that could possibly have a lot of these plant allies that could help her with her healing.
yes, absolutely. I think that's wonderful. I was at an event recently in Los Angeles at Dr. Lily Chen's office, and I was doing a book signing and talk there, and there was a couple of vets in the audience, and one vet was Eastern Indian, and he came up to me afterwards, and the same thing that you're talking about. He said, you know, um, I read your book. And I wanted to say, I love how you are incorporating all of the herbs that genetically support you, like, and the United States and Canada. He was talking about that. He said, I truly believe that the plants that we live around and that we live with in proximity, and that can be, he was talking about, it can be on your landmass, but like these plants that work with you and for you and show up for you. He said, I really love how you're using those and not your typical, um, a lot of Chinese medicine where the plants don't grow anywhere near us, you know,
Hmm.
um, where the bulk of my book is, is about, it's about Western herbs, I mean, there are, the turmerics are there and a couple of other things that don't grow here. But uh I wish I would have recorded him because he went off to say a bunch of other things about plants and genetics and energy signatures. And we had a great conversation, but I didn't record it, which I wish I would have.
Mm. Okay, Rita, you're the right person to ask about this. It's an idea that's been kind of like in the back of my mind for a while, but I don't think I've talked to anyone about it. Um, but it's related to what you're talking about here, I think. So, okay, so us like people of European descent who end up here on Turtle Island, we could be seen, especially by the native people who are already here, as like an invasive species, right?
Yes.
And and we have all of these things that we call invasive species like Scotch broom and other things that, as soon as they start blooming in the spring, then there's people out there cutting them down and burning them and stuff, trying to eradicate this invasive species.
Mhm.
And I just wonder, like, if you have any experience with this or what your intuition about it might be, that there might be something in the kind of like curing like approach, for us, like people who are maybe trying to actively decolonize themselves to be um, better allies, better settlers, all of that stuff. If there's something about like looking to other invasive species who have actually learned how to get along on this land, maybe better than a lot of us have as humans. Do you know where I'm going with this? Like, do you feel
Yeah,
like,
well,
Mhm.
I mean, it sounds like I do. There's this great book, it's called Invasives.
Hmm,
It's all about invasive plant medicine. When there's an invasive, you want to look at what that invasive does. Now, Scotch broom, um, you can look at it two ways. You can look at it like what it does for the body and then what it does for the 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 spirituality of the place where it's growing. You know, uh I think all over the United States, you can look at different types of invasives, and a lot of the invasives that are on this continent, uh, it are liver remedies.
hmm,
Like, and and what does the liver hold? It holds anger. Okay, the liver holds anger. So the more angry you are, the worse your liver is. And if you think about all of the anger that is in our soil and in our lives, right?
hmm,
Anger is in so many things now. Like people are angry and they're afraid. So, kidney and liver are huge in invasive medicine. Um, and I think that, you can look at a plant for its physicality, but you can also look at a plant for its energetic medicine too. And I think that, a lot of invasives have yellow flowers, which indicates liver. Um, I think a lot of plants also help the kidney because, it's kind of like self-selection medicine, zoopharmacognosy. You have animals that will eat a toxic plant, right? But the antidote is always near.
hmm,
Do you know what I'm saying? Like the antidote is always near. And when we look at invasives, we can always look for other plants that offer assistance to that plant. Like for instance, nettle, a lot of times on the side of the road, St. John's wort will grow near it. And St. John's wort will cure the sting of a nettle.
hmm.
I
Doesn't
mean,
mullein as well, or yarrow, or there's another kind of leafy plant that will grow around nettle that helps to soothe nettle sting. I didn't know
um,
St. John's wort as well, but
I don't know the other plant, but I
mhm,
know St. John's wort. Um, Also, the nettles grow prolifically, and those are a kidney remedy. You know, um, there's like St. John's wort helps with the nervous system. It helps the liver. It helps sympathetic excess. It helps the lymphatic system. Um, there are so many herbs that people are just trying to destroy because they are prolific. But and dandelions, again, we have another yellow plant.
Hmm.
Uh, the flower is such a powerful anti-inflammatory. The root does, helps the liver, the kidney. And you think about dandelions and how it shows up and where it shows up. Um, it's always around people. It's offering itself to the soil, to the people. The energetically, it is such a well-rounded plant,
Hmm.
and it
It's funny, like
there's so many of them.
dandelion loves a manicured lawn.
It does. It does. Um, and another thing is like plantain, right?
Hmm.
Plantain is everywhere. And I find it to be more prolific now. Uh, these last like 5 to 10 years have it has just like I feel like it's everywhere right now, just everywhere. And if you look what it does, plantain helps protect the gut against glyphosate damage.
Hmm.
Um, and here it is, offering itself up. It helps with gut healing in general. And you look at how many people are suffering from food sensitivities and different things like that because of, in the United States and Canada, we are using things that are destroying our food system. Um, so, I'm going over to Italy at the end of April, and I can't wait to try out the gluten because I can't eat it. And,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give her a try. And, I've heard so many people like totally be able to eat over there because they're not in Italy, they're not destroying their food system. They look
Hmm.
at, okay, this is our livelihood. And why would we want to, uh, take a turd in our own sandbox, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I think that invasives offer all of that. And I think they offer healing for what we have done to our indigenous people, to, the things that we have done and taken. And um, all of those things, I think, resonate energy signatures in the body. And, it ends with us. Like, it is our responsibility to energetically put an end to that, to because it is what it is now, right? It's just
Hmm.
we're all here, and we have to come together and create peace with that. And I think a lot of our plants can help us do that.
Hmm.
Comfrey is everywhere as well, which is it's a generational medicine. You look at borage, like people who think borage is invasive. No, borage and comfrey are generational medicines. They go way back generation after generation and heal that lineage.
Hmm. Interesting. Well, this has been a really great and fascinating conversation. I think you mentioned that you've got a podcast as well, right?
I do. It's called Dogs Are Individuals. It's
Hmm.
anywhere you would listen to podcasts. Uh yeah, I have a podcast. My book called The Herbal Dog just came out in February. Um, Canada has it as well. They have it in their bookstores. Um, you can find me on socials, Canine Herbalist, Canine Herbalist, Canine Herbalist everywhere, with a C. And then I have a store and consultancy, which is at canineherbalist.com. And then I have a teaching platform. I have a school. It's called the Ethos School of Canine Herbalism. That is at canineherbalism.com.
Cool. You are the dog shaman. I love it.
That's my friend Isla.
And you're going on tour for the book. You're going to be up in my neck of the woods.
I am. I've been on tour since February 4th. Um, and I'm home right now doing some local events and then heading up to BC, and then I'm going across the United States, and I'll end up in Ireland, England, and Spain. Woo woo.
Amazing.
Having a great time. Yeah.
Very cool.
Plants and animals. Bam.
Yeah, I love it. Um, Thanks so much. And I'll put links to everything in the description below. And I love this book. Thank you for putting it out. Thank you for all the work.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on your podcast.
Yeah, my pleasure. And Suki's asleep, but we'll say goodbye to her too. All right.
Okay. You too.